without further ado, I want to welcome Crystal and Mukunda.
Curious how making this film began.
Well, I'm doing a Q&A, it's so long.
It's been a while.
Let me well, I was walking on the street and I saw all of them together. They ran past me in the street and it was just magical, I guess. Like, what's happening? So I ran after them and I just asked them, like, where are you guys from? And they were pretty skeptical of me and they're like, Delancey Street? And literally from Delancey Street, it was like 3 blocks down. I was like, okay, Delancey Street where? Not New York? But it was New York. And his brother came in to ask me what I did for a living and I told them that I was a filmmaker and they got really, really excited. Oh, we're interested in getting into the business of filmmaking. So I started giving them filmmaking lessons in the park. We just like hang out with cameras and started this friendship and I helped them make some projects and then eventually their story unfolded.
What year was this?
2010? Yeah. So we worked on this project for 5 years. Do you have anything to add?
How we came to make this film was when we first met Crystal. We were, like she said, skeptical. We had first started going out only for like a month, and the first time we had met her was the first time we all went out together. Before it was 2 by 2, 3 by 3, or one person alone. And we always used, the reason how we met Crystal is because we always used First Avenue as a guide to get back home. Street 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And from 14, we could go all the way to Union Square to 8th Avenue and find our way back. And coming back, that's how we met Crystal. And after we had met her, that's where the magic happened. She taught us cameras, taught us about film, camera techniques, and later we told her about our story. And she found out that there was more to us than meets the eye. Because we all went out in suits, had long hair and shades on.
They're so cool.
I'm the only one that has long hair, actually. Everyone else has their hair cut.
Yeah.
How many months was it before you guys were formally shooting this documentary? From the time you first met?
We kind of just started shooting right away, but we didn't know that we were making a documentary. I would just shoot them while we're like learning cameras and stuff like that. They just wanted a camera around them at all times. So it was perfect.
Can you talk a little bit about the siblings that weren't featured as much? There were 7 kids, right? Like the younger one, I'm thinking.
Eddie?
It like have like influenced more by like you guys becoming more independent. I'm wondering how that influenced
you. So Eddie so they changed their names to Eddie and Glenn. It was Krishna and Jagdisha. And they were Eddie Von Rice and Buckler and Glenn Hughes, right? So they're 80s names. They love the 80s. They're more now into music and not so much into filmmaking. But I think that Mukunda's the one that left the house with the mask, and of like, when I first met them, they kind of moved as like one entity together, and they all had the same idea. They all went like, I'm going to be the cinematographer, I'm going to be the producer, I'm going to be the director, and but like when they all started kind of going their own ways, I was more towards like the end of our filming period. So like when they kind of really started to come out and change is kind of like really the last couple of years. But they're doing awesome. I mean, all of them are doing awesome. They're all doing their own thing. And very individual
And
things.
even Glenn now got their hair cut and bleached blonde. They have a metal band called Auto Wreck. In Brooklyn, they jammed in Union Pool sometimes, and yeah, at our friend's bar in Bed-Stuy, I think. But yeah, they're doing jams, writing songs, stained metal, as they call it. They're really cool.
Has your father seen the film?
He has. He gives it a thumbs up. He really liked it. And my mom saw it as well. She really, really loved the film. And when the film had won at Sundance, we got to travel and go to places and where the film would take us. Our mom got to travel with us on those trips as well and visit her family for the first time in like 25 years as well.
I actually have a question about that key scene. What were the events following up to her deciding to call her mother? It seemed like it felt like there was some impetus or something opened up that allowed her to make that.
He actually shot that scene. And then she just she's like, I'm gonna call my mom.
She had known her number for a little while, like a couple of months, but I think she didn't know how her mother was going to react because she was really older and she was worried that she might shock her or something, but she didn't want to do anything to upset her mother. So finally she just felt like, today I'll just call my mother. And I decided to film it.
It's a very really impactful scene.
She felt really, as you can tell in the scene, she felt very relieved. Like, from what I could tell, it looked like she was holding her breath. And then after she called her, it was like a huge release for her to just finally hear her mother's voice after such a long, long time.
And they've been visiting their grandma the last year.
I just came back from a family road trip to see my grandmother again. And my aunts and uncles and great aunt and great uncle.
But he never knew anyone his entire life.
Do you feel like because you were filming that scene that it kind of allowed you to kind of step back from the emotions because you thought like I'll just be the shooter here. So, or did you feel like mixed because you were just witnessing your mother to this very
I was
important
definitely mixed. It was kind of hard to like keep a shot as I was recording because watching my mom talk to her mother was very emotional for me to watch, as well as filming it. It was like hard just to stare into the camera and look at what she looked like for real, what she really looked like as she was calling it instead of looking through a camera. So it was hard. There was a mix in there, but I just felt like it was a really beautiful moment to just capture. And as I was capturing, I felt cinematic, to say, capturing like an emotional depth moment.
You did a good job.
Thanks.
You did a fantastic job, all of you collaborating together and creating this documentary. I'm curious, two things. How did you gain the trust of the parents to eventually go into the apartment and spend so much time there, and especially the father? And Did you do any scripting really together, or you, Crystal, regarding how it might develop or what questions you might have for them to get them to open up more emotionally?
The first question, they invited me to their house like maybe like 3 months after meeting them, and it was really just, I had no idea what the story was at that point. I had no idea like what their father had done, and I just went in with a completely like optimistic, open mind to this situation. And I was just so blown away by their art pieces everywhere, and their parents weren't home. I think it was like about like 6 months until like, they were actually there. So I'd come over and like they would leave to give them space, because the dynamic was totally different when after he went out the mask. So it changed things, and like they basically had control over the household. Yeah. As far as like scripting, like no, like I mean, you know, we had to like give context, so we did quite a few interviews. So many. But you know, the story was really pulled out in the edit. It became a different story than I realized through the edit. We had a really great editor, and Nazi. She did Jesus Can. She's amazing.
It's an extraordinary film, and this whole thing coming out of this box, you know, somebody called it a box, you know, and the fear and the hiding and all of that, and to come to such a place of openness, that transition is like extraordinary, and you know, I suppose because of the filming, you know, the place of filming your life, that maybe that helped it, but I'm just very interested in that, if you talk about that transition from the hiding to being so open, you know, and it's just so surprising, you know, and for you guys, it's one thing because you're coming from this place of powerlessness into, you know, being teenagers and coming into your own, and your father and your mother and all that, and just, it's amazing. So I just wonder if you can talk a little bit about how that felt.
Coming out of our apartment and stepping into the world.
But I'm talking about within the film too.
Oh, in the film.
Like, yeah, you became, you know, suddenly you were so visible. You know, I'm not talking about.
Oh, the aftermath of the film.
Yeah, and just the experience of coming from that other place into.
You're saying it before and after the film came out?
I'm saying just that whole emotional, mental process of coming from this box where you're fearful and controlled to a place where you're very visible, you know, you're hiding, you know, you all were hiding, you know, and being hidden, and all of a sudden you're way out there in the world. So that's like pretty amazing transformation, you know.
Oh, thank you. Freedom. It feels almost like, the best way I can put it is, to me, it feels almost like a dream. A bad dream, but also a different dream from others. Because when we had started going out, we used movie references as guides to where to go in the city, used movie lines on how to meet people, and I still do that sometimes. And traveling, now this film coming out, traveling the world, we've been all over Europe, been to Switzerland, all over the UK, been to LA. We met a lot of our heroes, David Russell, Ian Freakin, Mark Ruffalo, and I felt, I still remember everything, but it feels, I don't look at it as a negative way or a negative impact, but I feel like I've always been out in the world at this point. I can easily talk to anybody, engage in conversation with anybody. It's just a matter of figuring out my tax returns in the end. Or taxes, which I'm still in trouble with.
But I think also like what was so interesting when I met them is that they had this openness that most people don't have. Like they didn't feel jaded, they didn't feel corrupt by the world. There's this really strong curiosity and passion for the world that I love. That's what really pulled me in, to like see how passionate they were about films and so young, and it was really sweet.
I'm curious if there's anything you'd add to the movie or would have changed now, or would you just like it the way it is?
I mean, there was like a couple scenes I wish I was able to keep in.
What were those?
One was like a scene with his little brother showing me his record collection. I felt like we could probably work it in a couple of things. And also, I wish we would have explained a little bit more what was going on with his sister. Because not everybody, like, a lot of people miss that she was disabled. She has Turner syndrome, and she can't communicate. That's why she wasn't married. But also, like, I made the film with them, and I met her about like 8 months into the process, so it was a different kind of story. But I do wish that I would explain a little bit more and see the question that happens every 5 minutes. But she's doing great as well.
I'm sure this is a popular question, and you guys already kind of touched on it, but kind of the epilogue and about your siblings. You mentioned 2 siblings are in a band. What about the rest of your siblings? Where are they living at home? Are you any of you living at home? What are you doing now?
Some of us still live at home and some of us have moved out. Two of my brothers who are twins, Govind and Narayana. Govinda is actually a camera assistant who works on TV shoots and movie shoots and does commercial stuff as well. He also shot his first feature film as a cinematographer. So he's an aspiring cinematographer and he's moving towards that path. So he's doing good. He lives in Brooklyn now. No idea where, but somewhere. Narayana is an environmentalist. He works at this environmental company called Nightbird. And he's actually, and that company was one of the big companies that got fracking banned in New York City. And he accomplished that last year, which was a huge motivation for him. And he's working part-time at Metrograph actually, the new indie theater in Manhattan, Lower East Side. You guys heard of that? So he's working there now. If you want to say hi to him, check it out. He'll tell you all about films there. And Bhagavan, our eldest brother, works at this dance company where he performs and dances stories such as, he just did Romeo and Juliet as one, and I can't remember what else he's done. I think Beauty and the Beast, or Alice in Wonderland as well. So he's kind of like reinventing, this company is with like reinventing the classic stories and putting it into like dance performance as well as singing and movement. So that's what they're all up to.
All creative things.
Oh, me. I'm working part-time as like a assistant on movie shoots and TV and commercial, and Fashion Week is here now, so I guess some fashion work is going to come up to do. I model a little bit, but I don't like it, so I can just a little bit. And I'm going to film school this fall at New York Film Academy.
What do you feel your interest is more geared towards in film now? I mean, in the beginning of the film, you guys were interested in the classics like Godfather and Blue Velvet and all the Tarantino films. But having worked on your own narrative and documentary up until The Last Piece, which I really enjoyed, which was the avant-garde sort of piece, where do you feel more inspired towards, gearing towards, which will probably change in film school, but
Probably.
now.
But we still love the old classics. Like a couple of days ago, I just watched Gone with the Wind, and it just passed by like that. I haven't seen that film in a while, and I just still fall in love with it every time. We still love The Godfather, Citizen Kane, Mrs. Maneuver, Casablanca. We still love and become inspired by the old classics, Stanley Kubrick. But during the process of making the documentary, as I was out more and making my own films, I became really inspired by David Lynch as well. Quentin Tarantino is still one of our top inspirations for film, especially dialogue and screenwriting and just camera techniques he uses. Christopher Nolan is one of my top inspirations as well. One of my favorite films was The Dark Knight, and after Inception came out, I was bedazzled by it. Interstellar, and he still tops me, but David Lynch is like one of the key inspirations for me as well. I've also discovered Harmony Korine as one of the key inspiration as well, because going out into the world and experiencing it, it feels like some of the films David Lynch or Harmony Korine would make. It's very avant-garde. Nothing's planned or scripted. It's just kind of like a dream sequence. Anything can happen. Anything can hit you in the face. You never know what you're going to find on the street. It's
Essence of New York.
Precisely.
I'm curious about the education you received from your mother, and if any other people came into your home, like artists that you had contact with when you were growing up, or was it really just all the films you saw and all that exposure to the world and your mother's education to all of you? Or were there others that came into the house during that time period?
No. So it was just my mother's education and the movies education. Our mother taught us a lot of literature, history, science, and math, like the basic majors you send your kid to school with, but films kind of taught us how to talk in a social way. Talk very low or very down. Or he is a clam, but I don't like you. Like talk in certain ways, use certain volumes to show people your mood, or what mood you're in. Films taught us all about that, and they also taught us big words. Electricity, I learned the spell from one of Wes Craven's films. I can't remember the name, Shock Gripper, I think, where this guy is in an electric chair, and when he gets electrocuted, he's living through electricity. I can't remember the name of that.
Yeah, I think Shocker.
Shocker, that's it, thank you. Electricity, I learned how to spell from that. I'm still learning words from movies today.
So, do you remember your first film that you saw? And I have a second question too, like who brought the films into the home? Was it your father?
So any films that were coming out in present day, we could only see through the TV, and the build-up would rise from TV to watching the premieres on TV, to watching like TV on Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight to find out what new movies are coming, or he would buy, back then, VHS tapes, and they would show previews of what movies are going to be in theaters soon. So that was like our only way of finding out movies or having to bring in movies, is looking through books or magazines, or like Rolling Stone sometimes would come in, newspapers sometimes. The TV especially was our big way of finding out. And whenever a film we had, with an actor or director we had loved, we would request him to get that film, or he would just get some films sometimes just because the movies were on sale or DVDs were on sale. What was your second question?
Like, do you remember like the first film that you
Oh,
saw
the
that
first
had like
film.
a big impression upon you?
Sadly, I think it may have been Batman and Robin. I think it was that for me. But my brother's first film, I believe, was True Lies. They saw it at drive-in, and I think I was a baby at that time. But as far as I can remember, it was George Clooney as Batman. Sadly. After that, it was Halloween and Last Action Hero.
What was it about Crystal that made you want to open up to her, that maybe let you get something there?
She was very, I would say the best way is because we had a kind of, because we had an openness, and she was just very open about talking to us as well. She didn't treat us anything like, oh, you're a special kid, you poor kids, you have to do this. She was just talking to us like an adult. Basically like, she was a movie character talking to us in like a movie way from what we could gather up. How people talk to each other in films, we were like, oh, she was real about it. And we had a kind of organic flow to one another because our relationship was built up based a lot on loving movies, because she was a film director and we wanted to be in films, and switching film stories, or what was your favorite film, what films did you love growing up, and I think that's how we became comfortable communicating as openly as we did.
Was there ever a point where you didn't feel like on the same page, or you were unsure like what you guys were doing, or were you always felt very invested in Crystal and her project and y'all's project?
Interesting. Some of us were kind of like, interview again, because we had done so many interviews and talked so much, but we understood her like perspective as a filmmaker, that she was making a film, and we were very respectful of that, so we did as many interviews and talked as much as we could. But as for like on the same page, we were kind of like, it's your movie, do what you want. We're not going to jump in and say, we don't like this, we don't like that. Just have complete creative control, because from what we understood, that's how movies get ruined, is when filmmakers like make a halt like Suicide Squad. I'm sure they could have did so much better, but they made it into something else and fucked it up. So I think that's how we were just like always on the same page, just being interviewed and talking, and when it came down to Final Cut, we were just like, do it your way.
I think there's a question up front here. Did you have
Oh, sure. Can you talk about all those old VHS footage?
Yeah, oh, VHS footage.
Those are amazing.
So those VHSs rank from 1999 all the way till 2010. I think 2010 was like our last VHS filming. We had like a little camcorder, and our dad would always record our childhood from 1999 all the way up to 2009. But after 2009, we like broke. After 2009, when 2010 hit, we broke out and we took control of the camera. We filmed our Halloween finally, like the way we would want to do it. But there's like over 100 hours or more worth of VHS footage from us as kids. Every year there's a 2000, 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9. There was a lot of VHS tapes there. But our dad would always get recordable VHS tapes, so 6 hours would be on one VHS tape, so you can put 6 hours of footage in one tape, and we had like 30 tapes or something like that. Still do. We own everything.
How much of the recording was yours or one of your brothers versus?
In the film?
Yeah.
Govinda, as I understood, filmed a lot of like establishing shots, like exterior shots with Crystal, filming the apartment or on the bridge, or I'm not really sure too much of what he did. I filmed Narayana at his, when you see my brother like holding up a sign that says change, or like this huge, that's him working as an environmentalist. I filmed about 4 hours of that. I just filmed him all day long. Basically, when Crystal she wanted to get footage, and I was like, I'll film it, no problem. Stood there in the cold for 4 hours and I filmed it. I felt like, yeah, this is filmmaking. This is what it's all about. I filmed my mother, and yeah, we didn't film like a lot of the footage, but I'm sure we did, but a lot of it didn't end up in the final cut, but Crystal had done most of the filming, and audio as well. We also did audio as well. Some of us were on the beach or just being interviewed. We would just like hold an audio recorder Crystal was using and like get used to what kind of technology she was using to make the film. We were happy to do it because we would gain knowledge from it.
I'm curious about your current feelings with your parents, your relationship with them, and if you kind of reconciled your like non-traditional upbringing, or if you feel like you had to reconcile it.
My relationship with my mother has always been the same. She's the greatest mother ever. And I still learn a lot from her, and I'm still trying to like make her life as easier for her as she can. So, especially through technology, because she just got into social media. She's always coming at me with questions, how this works, how that works, how does her phone work? True. My dad, I still don't talk to him, so after I broke out, I had stopped talking to him at one point, and but we understand each other. He's happy that we're out and about and traveling and making films. He's happy we're getting jobs now and working. So I would say with my dad, even though I don't talk to him, I think we're okay.
I think we're going to take a couple more questions, but if anybody has anything for Crystal, it's been the last couple of minutes. Is there anything that you want to talk about as far as Crystal, her career, and anything?
What projects are you working on right now?
I just finished a short film on these skater girls that premiered on Sunday on New York Times.
Las Brujas? Las Brujas, that group?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, these girls are younger.
Okay.
I've been working with them for like the last 6 months, and I'm probably going to expand it to a feature. And then I also have been traveling doing this series on the water crisis. So I've been documenting different women in Kenya, Peru, and Haiti that are dealing with the water crisis. Just like character-driven, really like simple stories about women that don't have water. And we're doing some other stuff. We're doing some stuff with them too. We haven't talked about it yet.
Was there a specific story that maybe you didn't want, like in the editing room, was there something you maybe worried that people would take from the movie that you didn't need to say? Like, was there like maybe a specific version of this film that you didn't want to make as a filmmaker that like maybe you tried to make sure you made the best version of this?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people ask me like, oh, how did you tell the story of your judgments? And I'm like, I don't know. I just told the story how I would tell it. So it's kind of, I think that when you're a filmmaker, you just tell the story that makes sense to you. So I think that I wanted to show their resilience. I didn't want to show them as victims, because they're not. I wanted it to feel, for people to feel them, and because they spoke to me so deeply, and I wanted to convey that to the world, like how special they were. And I wanted to, I always saw the story to have like an optimistic ending, even when it didn't have one. So I just stopped with it until it kind of, I don't know, weird.
There's always a form of collaboration between a documentary and the subjects, and in this film you felt even more so, almost to the point of you guys kind of having an internship in your own filming lives. How has the process and your relationship with these brothers formed and informed the work you've done since?
Well, I mean, I was directing fashion films before I did this project, so I think I was able to tap into like real emotional stories and understanding emotion and how to bring that forward, and also just like being able to not hold back and be really strong with the kind of projects that I want to make. Like I mean, it's put me in a like really good stories that I want to tell now. So I feel very lucky that this film did so well, and for him too. And he had like a very, very successful art show last year with Dutch projects, and we're making